Shastra Vicharane Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamita Karino Tribhuvane Manya Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nande Namataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatagine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Once I was giving a course, and after I did the course, I asked the attendees for some feedback. One of the feedback I got was I spent too much of time in the beginning reciting the prayers. And I sort of responded to the feedback by saying it's our tradition to invoke auspiciousness. You know, our bhakti tradition teaches us that we are very insignificant. Whatever progress we make, whatever ability we have to speak something, only comes through mercy, not through our own efforts. And the whole process and path of bhakti is to pray for mercy. In everything we do is to pray for mercy and to never think that, you know, we are competent. And to always remember our predecessor acharyas, because they have opened up all of this knowledge. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invested within his heart all of the most confidential teachings of bhakti. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to transmit bhakti. Therefore, when Srila Prabhupada, before he came to America, his place of residence was the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And many of you all would have visited Srila Prabhupada's quarters in Radha Damodar temple. And you know, from Srila Prabhupada's room, there is a window. And then from that window, you can see the Samadhi tomb of Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada was always praying to Srila Rupa Goswami to empower him to fulfill the mission that was given by his Guru Maharaj. So as we explained, we discussed previously, we are only studying the first 19 chapters. And now we finished chapter 1. Anyone can remember what was the essence of chapter 1? Chandrika Mataji?
Hare Krishna. Sorry, I'm trying to log on using 2 devices. So I'm a little bit confused.
Prabhuji, 6 features of pure devotional service.
Devotional service.
6 features? What do you mean?
Well, the Kleshagni, Subhata, Sandrananda, Sudurlabha. And all that.
Oh, yes. So that is chapter 1, you're right. Sorry, I probably mistake. Prabhupada actually starts the Nectar devotion in the introduction. You're quite right. I got a little disorientated there. So in the introduction, Prabhupada starts off by giving us a definition of what is pure devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he writes so brilliantly in this book. He says, all right, we're going to be talking about pure devotional services in this whole book. It makes sense that before we even start talking about pure devotional service, let us first discuss what we mean when we say pure devotional service. And then we discussed what is the definition of pure devotional service in that verse, Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavrita, Anakulyena Krishna Anushilanam, Bhakti Uttama. So just as a quick refresh, let me go through, I'll call out to each of you all some of the chief qualities of pure devotional service. Bhagavati Mataji, can you remember some of the chief qualities of pure devotional service? What Srila Rupa Goswami incorporates in his definition?
Is it like purity of devotional service or transcendental devotional service? Is that what I'm discussing about it?
You actually mentioned one word that's definitely there in the definition. You said pure devotional service is pure.
Yes.
Pure.
Pure.
So for it to be recognized as pure, what should it be free
So
of?
they should not have the desire of bhakti or mukti. Is that right?
Yes, bhukti, mukti, adi. That means no desire for karma. He says karma, meaning, as you said, fruit of result.
Yeah.
Jnana, liberation, and adi means mystic perfection.
Mystic,
So
yes.
it's pure, unmixed, pure.
And
That's
so,
right. Anyone else can remember another characteristic?
That it should be favorable.
It should be favorable, yes. The mood should be favorable. Very good. Pramod Prabhu. Anyone else? Chandrika Mata, you sorted your mic now?
Anya Bilisatsunyam.
Yes.
The desire, should have any desire except for the service of the Lord.
Yes, that's true. That's what we just discussed. Bhagavati Mataji said. That's actually the secondary characteristics. Primary characteristics were said with 3.
Sorry, first when you said Krishna, everything should be centered around Krishna
Exactly.
and his devotees, and like his pastimes, all the things we do should be he should be the center, focal point.
Yes, pure devotional service means Krishna. Yes. Kushum Mataji, 3 Swarabhlakshi. Can you remember anything else in the definition? He says it must be there. Must be there.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I can't remember anything.
Okay, fair enough, no problem.
Really sorry.
No, okay. Mayank, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It was Krishna. It was some An- Anus
Anushilanam.
Anushilanam, yeah.
Yes, very good. Very good. What does Anushilanam mean?
Like whatever work we do, like it should have some sort of cultivate that activity, something like that you mentioned.
Cultivation, yeah. It must be an active engagement. It must be an active engagement. So 3 primary characters. Sorry, I'm covering all ground here, but it's so important to really get this. So there are 3 Swarup Lakshana, primary characters. It must be for Krishna. It must be Anushilanam, an active engagement. And Anukulyena, it must be favorable mood. And then the other secondary characteristics is what we've been discussing. It must be free from jnana, karma, yoga, must be free from ulterior motive, and so on. So that's what we discussed. Srila Rupa Goswami gives. Now, after he's given the definition of bhakti, he does something very interesting in the first chapter. As Divya Gaurangi Mataji said, the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. So after having defined what is pure devotional service, he almost goes and says, why pure devotional service? Why pure devotional service? And then he lists 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. And what we will notice in the 6 characteristics, what really shines out is why pure devotional stands out so much against all other processes. And he gives some very compelling reasons in the form of the characteristics. Previously, we discussed the first 2. What I think the first one you already mentioned, Divya Gaurangi Mataji. Remind us again. What was the first one?
Yes, Prabhuji. First one is pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all material distress called Kleshagni.
Yes, Kleshagni. So he brings immediate relief from all material distress. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he then writes, what is the cause? What is the cause of material distress? He does it so brilliantly, and he said there are 3 causes. Can anyone remember what are the 3 causes? What is the source of all distress that we encounter?
Is the suffering, Prabhu? Is the suffering?
Suffering, yes. And what
Yeah.
suffering comes from what?
A result of our sins, and we have material desire, and then the third one can be where it desires from, the material desires sort of comes from the ignorance, yes.
Yeah, so anyone suffering in this material world, if you really analyze it in detail, you'll see there's 3 causes of their suffering. The first one is their previous sinful activities, papa. Anyone that's suffering in this world, you can trace it. One cause is their sinful reactions. The second reason we suffer is material desire. Because we have material desires, it causes us to act in a certain way, and then we get more suffering. And lastly, we suffer because of ignorance. We forget what is our real position in life. We are like in a dream at the moment, but we take this dream to be like a reality. We come under illusion. If we really understood who we are, we'll see the whole world in a different perspective. So we covered all of that. And the point that Srila Rupa Goswami really drives home is how it's only devotional service can eradicate all 3. No other process can, like there's different degrees of sin. And he says pure devotional service is the only process that can burn away sin in its seed form, in its root. It kills it in its root, so there's no opportunity. Then we went on to the second quality. Let me ask somebody who can remember Jai Shri Mataji, what was the second characteristic?
Beginning of all auspiciousness.
Yes, and what's the Sanskrit term?
I can't remember, Prabhuji.
Subhada.
Shubhada, yeah. Yes. It is the beginning of all auspiciousness. Or not only beginning, he says, it brings all auspiciousness. Right? And then Srila Rupa Goswami says, for something to be deemed to be all auspicious, it has to satisfy 3 criteria. It has to satisfy 3 criteria, otherwise it cannot be deemed to be all auspicious. Can anyone remember any of those 3 criteria that it has to meet to be deemed to be all auspicious?
One that benefits everyone, Prabhuji.
Excellent. It must benefit everyone. So for someone to be all auspicious, it must benefit everyone. And Divya Gaurangi Mataji, when we say everyone, can you elaborate a bit more about what everyone means? It just means the Brahmins, the Shudras.
All.
What does it mean, everyone?
All, Prabhuji, everyone. So regardless of Varna and Ashrama, everyone.
Yes, but it goes
All
even.
living
Does
entities.
it mean all the plants and animals? And
Yes, yes. Not
Yeah.
only the human beings, but it has got to go to extend beyond that. So Srila Rupa Goswami said, yes, it's got to benefit everyone. And then you can see, secondly, it says it's got to be able to attract everyone. If it can benefit everyone, but it can't attract them, it means they won't be inclined to take it up. And if they're not able to take it up, then they won't get the benefit. And then lastly, he says it has to produce all good qualities. Because if it doesn't produce all good qualities, people cannot really be happy. They cannot be peaceful. And to be able to attract everyone, you have to have all good qualities. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives such a beautiful explanation of it being all auspicious. And by explaining it in these terms, one can immediately deduce that nothing can compare with pure devotional service. And then he says actually something also very quite interesting about this quality of all auspicious. He says that these first 2 characteristics we said previously, they come in there's three stages of bhakti. It's sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. And previously we said the first 2 qualities come at the stage of sadhana bhakti. But even within sadhana bhakti, there are different stages. We all know the stages from Shraddha to Prema. It's Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, then Anartha Nivriti, and then Nishtha. Nishtha means steady. So these qualities, the first 2 qualities, they are manifest to varying degrees in the stage of sadhana bhakti. But when one comes to the stage of nishtha, means steadiness, then these 2 characteristics are fully manifest. That means at the stage of nishtha, when we are fixed, then all of what we've discussed in terms of kleshagni and shubhada, they are manifest. So if we are thinking, okay, we're discussing all of this, I am a sadhaka, I've been practicing sadhana bhakti now maybe for 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30, maybe even more than 30 years, experiencing. But Rupa Goswami says this is the stage of Nishta. And only when we become steady in sadhana bhakti, we become completely free from suffering. Actually, it's the other way around. When we're completely free of all of the kleshas, and then when we are experiencing all auspiciousness, then we become steady. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he gives some very nice examples about how pure devotional service benefits everyone. He speaks about the United Nations. And then in terms of attracting everyone, he speaks about Lord Chaitanya's visit in the Jarikanda forest. The other day while I was doing my puja, I was listening to the audio of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there was the description of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walking through the Jarikanda forest. And this forest was just full of wild animals, tigers, elephants. And they were also less wild and innocent, like deer and so on. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the devotees asked him to please take some assistant with him. And his assistant was feeling a little afraid because he was aware of all the wild animals. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, then when the elephants and the tigers, they came, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told them, chant Hare Krishna. And the animals in their own way, they were saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All of the animals, they were chanting. And when they started to chant, they started to hug and embrace each other. And normally animals who would be in conflict were in complete harmony. I mean, I was thinking, if you tell some ordinary person about the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and in his pastimes in the Jarikanda forest, they would think this is actually fairy tale. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could touch, the body is just like a covering. He could touch the soul. He could touch the soul. And because it touches the soul, it can attract everyone, like no other process. And then Prabhupada also talks about how it is the point of auspiciousness because it can clear all of the unwanted things in the heart. This is the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Prabhupada also talks there about Haridas Thakur, the conversation between Haridas Thakur and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling so much of unhappiness. And he asked Haridas Thakur, he says, my heart is very troubled. And I see all the living entities in this material world, how they're suffering. And Haridas Thakur said, don't worry. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, they will be relieved from all sufferings. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that's well and good for the human beings. They can chant, but what about the trees and the other animals? And Sri Chaitanya Haridas Thakur said, don't worry. They will hear the holy name and they'll be benefit. And actually he said, when the devotees chant, you'll see there's some echo coming in from the trees and other. And Haridas Thakur said, that's not just an echo. It's the other living entities that are chanting in response. And then lastly, Srila Prabhupada concludes the section quoting Rupa Goswami in terms of developing all saintly qualities. And he quotes this famous verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. Persons of unflinching faith in Krishna and without any duplicity can develop all the qualities, good qualities of the demigods. And Srila Prabhupada concludes by explaining how the materialists are restless and the devotees are peaceful. So that's all auspiciousness. Now we'll go on to the third quality. Can anyone remember what is the third characteristic, which we will discuss now?
I don't remember, but I've got it in front of me.
Okay. Before you say it, because you got it in front of me, we'll come back to you if no one else can remember. Who one else can remember what is the third characteristic of pure devotional service?
Sandrananda Visheshatma.
Sandrananda Visheshatma. What does that mean? Divya Gaurangi Mataji.
It puts one, Prabhuji, in transcendental pleasure. Automatically puts in transcendental pleasure.
Yes. Sandrananda Visheshatma. Visheshatma. Later on, we will discuss the meaning of this word Visheshatma. It's a very interesting word. But it says pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. Now, this third quality, now we start to move on at the stage of Bhava Bhakti. And Rupa Goswami explains here that there are three types of happiness. The first type of happiness is the happiness which comes from sense gratification. The second type of happiness is the happiness which comes from liberation and Brahman realization. And the third type of happiness comes from devotional service. And Rupa Goswami says, of these three types of happiness, or types of happiness, the happiness that comes from pure devotional service is superior. And he gives two reasons why it is superior. The first reason he gives, that the happiness from pure devotional service is eternal, while the happiness from all of the other processes is temporary. And we'll do a little bit more discussion about that. And the second reason it says, it includes and excels the pleasures found in other types of happiness. And again, we'll discuss a bit more about that. So I think all of us do not require any convincing. We have personal experience, we have Vigyan, that the so-called happiness from sense gratification is very temporary. Our favorite food is kachori. We eat one kachori, very happy. We eat two kachoris, happy. We eat the third kachori, still happy, but maybe less so. And by the time we get to the sixth kachori, we're feeling a bit uncomfortable in the tummy. Prabhupada used to say, this finger, this is one of the senses, this finger. How much happiness you can get from this finger? Prabhupada, you can stroke it. You can put it in some warm water. You can do so much. But same finger, mistakenly, you hit it with a hammer or you get some cut. What is more you can experience? More pain. By nature, this material body by nature, sense gratification is so limited. So that we do not require any convincing because we already got practical realization. It's limited and it's so temporary. But let's just talk about liberation and Brahman realization. What does it mean if we say a person is Brahman realized? Firstly, what does that mean, Mayang Prabhu? If we say that person is Brahman realized, what does it actually mean? What's your understanding?
No, Prabhuji, I don't know.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, Kishore Prabhu, I've forgotten about you today. What would you say, Kishore Prabhu? If we say someone is Brahman realized, what does it actually mean?
Would it mean that he's trying to become one with God? I'm not sure. Is it?
It's one type of person. Yeah, one type of person, but it's a little bit more explanation. Kusham Mataji, if someone tells you that person is Brahman realization, what would you understand by that statement?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. If someone said that he's Brahman realized, my understanding is that means that he is on the path to attain Krishna consciousness, but he's still not there. So because he is trying to be Brahman realized, which is the outer, I mean, Brahman is not exactly Paramatma. It's like, there's a word that I'm looking for. Sorry, but it's something less than a Paramatma that he is sort of,
Okay. All right, thank you for that. You're not far off. You're not far off. Anyone else likes to say? Krishangi Mataji, would you like to say?
I think they try to identify themselves with the Supreme Brahman.
Okay. Well, the Prabhupada actually explains this in two contexts. The first thing Prabhupada said is Brahman means spirit. Like the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra is Aham Brahmasmi. That means I am spirit. So if we come to the realization that we are spirit, we are not the body. And this I'm talking about not just a theoretical understanding, but a realization that I am not the body. Then we come out of the bodily concept of life. It is a fairly high stage of spiritual realization. Prabhupada says once, there's in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, there's this incident. Prabhupada went to this big mela, and this big mela, all these big Mayavadi sannyasis were coming on stage and speaking. And this one Mayavadi sannyasi came, and he was speaking. Aham Brahmasmi. He was like declaring very boldly, we are spirit. And obviously, from there, they automatically migrate to the point that they are supreme spirit. Small Brahman becomes supreme Brahman. And then after he's speaking for a while, he ran off. He jumped off the stage and he ran off. So Prabhupada inquired, what happened there? And they said, oh, he was having a very bad toothache. He was having a very bad toothache and he couldn't take the pain anymore. So he had to run and get some treatment. And Prabhupada chuckled and he said, where is the Brahman realization then? Like Srila Prabhupada, when his final days, he was so thin. The Kaviraj that came, the Ayurvedic doctor that came to examine Srila Prabhupada, he was simply astounded. He said, that Srila Prabhupada would have been experiencing so much of pain, so much of burning sensation in the condition that he was, that it is quite amazing, how he was so fixed in transcendental consciousness, reciting, translating Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was Brahman realization and beyond. So the proof that Brahman realization is limited is that those swamis that do attain the stage of Brahman realization, but they have not come to the stage of Bhagavan realization, because it's the nature of the soul to be active, to be engaged. Very often they leave their practices and they go and they open up hospitals, they open up schools, and they do philanthropic work. They do philanthropic work because still something is missing. Something is missing. And Srila Prabhupada, he gives some very interesting narrative in his purport about this, and he includes within his purport the happiness that comes from mystic powers. And once Prabhupada said, from his own experience, he went once with he went to meet a yogi. And when he was meeting that yogi, the yogi was asking the audience, so what would you like? Tell me, what did you like? And someone said they like pomegranate. And immediately the yogi was able to bring pomegranate. And Prabhupada says the best pomegranates, they come from Iran. So just by his mystic power, he was able to manifest. And when Prabhupada says, that's not so wonderful. He said, Krishna is the greatest magician because we are not working, but in all our centers, we are distributing so much food. And this is the mystic power that comes from Krishna in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada was just making this comparison. Okay, he can produce a pomegranate. Yeah? He's just a yogi. He said, we are sadhus, but yet you come to our ISKCON center, there's just so much. That's all by the mercy of Krishna, or Krishna. And so there's another story about Prabhupada and a magician. So once a magician, he did a magic show for Prabhupada. And he made things appear from all sorts of places. And I think he even pulled out something from behind Prabhupada's head. And then Prabhupada told him when he finished, he says, but I am a better magician than you. And the man asked, how? And Prabhupada said, I can make birth and death disappear. And he asked the man, can you do that? And the man said, no, he couldn't. He couldn't. So this is the real magic. That's the real magic. So neither liberation, mystic perfection, nor sense gratification can bring eternal happiness. And as we were reading the other day in our chat class, it is said that at the stage of sadhana bhakti, there is a sense that the happiness that comes from pure devotional service is far superior to the happiness that comes from any of these other processes. At the stage of bhava bhakti, the happiness or joy that can come from this other process, it becomes insignificant. So from the first stage, there's a feeling that it's superior. At the second stage, it seems very insignificant. And at the stage of prema bhakti, the happiness that comes from liberation and mystic perfection and sense gratification is completely off the radar. You cannot even perceive it. You cannot even perceive it. This is how superior. Imagine being in that stage of pure devotional service. That is the stage where, like Srila Haridas Thakur, the highest sense of happiness in the material sphere, which comes from sense gratification, is the contact between male and female. And there's so many stories in the Vedic literature, great yogis, great jnanis. They got enticed by the apsaras from the heavenly planet. But Haridas Thakur, he was completely undisturbed. Completely undisturbed. He said there's two incidents actually in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One incident, Maya Devi herself came to test Haridas Thakur. But because he was experiencing so much of pleasure, so much of transcendental happiness by chanting the holy name of Krishna, that was just completely off the radar. There wasn't even a chance of him being tempted. Whereas the other yogis and the other mystics, there is some chance they will get tempted. But the pure devotees who are experiencing the pleasure that comes from pure devotional service, that's why they cannot even be disturbed. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's description of Ramananda Rai, how he was bathing, and he was dressing the young dancers, but he was not even slightly disturbed. Once Srila Prabhupada was speaking to some people, and he said, they were asking, what's the difference between you and us? Prabhupada said, the difference between you and me, you put me in a room full of naked women and I won't feel an inch of disturbance. That's the difference between you and me. And how is that so? How is that so? Because they are so much relishing the pleasure and the happiness of pure devotional service that nothing can touch them. Prabhupada quotes in the section following Rupa Goswami, this verse from the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, text number 32, Patanti Adaha. Maybe I should just bring up that text now, 10 to 32, because it's an interesting verse, which we have discussed a few times. So 10 to, I hope it's the same one. Oh, yes, Patanti Adaha. So this is the verse, I'll share it with you all. This verse is I'm sharing it because Srila Prabhupada he recites this verse so often in his classes. So I'll read the translation. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So essentially, what Lord Brahma and the other demigods are declaring in this very, very important and famous verse, that he says that no matter how advanced one is in austerities or penances, if they have no regard meaning they have not taken shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, their intelligence is impure. And what does it mean by someone's intelligence is impure? It means they still have, in one shape or form, some material desire. And what happens to them? This word you must see, if those who listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, very often he quotes this, patanti adaha. What happens? They fall from the position back down to material existence. So that's the verse that's being quoted in this regard. That's the verse. So I thought I would share that. So where am I now? Yeah, it immediately puts one in transcendental. Maybe before I go further, I'll just pause here and take any questions or reflections that anyone may have. Or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
So, you mentioned that the unfructified seeds are stopped by when you come into Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
So what happens to the ones that you are actually experiencing at the time? What happens to those? Are they kind of subdued? Is the suffering subdued? Or that you have to go through with? Because these are existing.
Yeah. Yes. That's a very interesting question you raised there, Mataji. Because externally, you can see even pure devotees, they go through some types of suffering. But that's not reactions of karma. That's not, depending on, we said this is at the stage of Nishta. So depending on which stage you are, there will be, different types of impact. But to answer your question, no. The devotee who may be so-called suffering, and by devotee we mean one at the stage of Nishta and beyond, they are not experiencing the results of their karma. Because by that stage, everything is burnt. Everything is burnt. But Krishna, there's something called Krishna karma. I'm not sure if you heard that term.
No.
It's been used sometimes, where Krishna, he may take some of the reactions of the devotee's past sins, and he'd use that to help the devotee come closer to him. But that's not deemed to be ordinary karma. That's something devotees have sometimes called Krishna karma. But this is directly under the control of the internal potency of Krishna. That is different. Does that answer your question, Emma Mataji, or there's still?
I was thinking of if somebody is experiencing a chronic illness, and then while they're suffering from that chronic illness, they come into Krishna consciousness, and they start chanting and the normal sadhana, all the sadhana. Then what happens to that suffering? Do they still have to live through it, or is the suffering subdued because they've come into Krishna consciousness?
Definitely subdued. I mean, if a person is genuinely Krishna conscious, bhakti takes you out of the bodily concept of life. Bhakti gives you a new perspective. So without doubt, bhakti removes that suffering. But, someone may challenge us and say, okay, they're suffering from cancer because of their karma, right? If they come to Nishta, then they'll be cured of all the cancer, because the cause of the cancer has not been eradicated. Someone may challenge us like that. But it doesn't work like that, as I said, there's something called Krishna karma. But if the devotee is fixed, the devotee is advanced, the devotee is at the stage of Nishta and beyond, certainly the avidya, which is resulting in them in suffering, there. I mean, I've read stories of advanced devotees who should have been in acute suffering, but they were experiencing externally in the body there was all of that, but internally they were in another state completely, and that's what counts is the internal state of consciousness.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. That's clarified. Thank you so much.
Anyone's got any other questions or clarification?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, can I ask one question?
Sure.
So Prabhuji, this third feature of Bhava Bhakti, Sandrananda Vishe Shatma, there today, Prabhuji, you explained the liberation and Brahmanda realization. So this feature comes at the stage of Bhava Bhakti.
Yes.
And so is this Brahman realization comes at Bhava Bhakti stage at this feature?
Yes. Well, it becomes fully manifest at the stage of Bhava Bhakti, but Bhava Bhakti definitely, one is Brahman stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bhava Bhakti, one is out of the bodily concept of life.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Because in our this Bhagavad Gita discussion we do on Wednesday, there I had tried to explain Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan concept by preparing slides. And so today you have given more explanation into that. So thank you for that. I knew that it's Brahman means it's the effulgence of Krishna. And so it's impersonal realization. It's the Sat feature of Satchitananda Vigraha. Is my understanding correct, Prabhuji? And then Paramatma is Sat and Chit, but Bhagavan is the highest. It is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha.
That's true. There's three, Sat Chit Ananda. The eternality or the Sat is experienced those at the Brahman stage of realization.
Yes, Prabhuji. So this Paramatma and Bhagwan concept is kind of easy to understand, but Brahman is one where I get sometimes. So I've got some understanding, but this effulgence is everywhere, Prabhuji, in spiritual world, right? It's a Krishna's effulgence that is Brahman, and that is
Well, there's two aspects of that realization, Mataji. So the first realization is that I am spirit. That even precedes understanding the Lord's Brahman feature, the all-pervading feature. First, you got to understand I am spirit. Come to the platform of I'm spirit. When you're at the platform of I'm spirit, I am spirit, the first realization you get is the Brahman feature, the effulgent feature of the Lord. Right. The second level of Brahman, I'm realizing I'm spirit. When you see the Paramatma, right? And the third realization of I'm spirit is Bhagavan, right? Realization. And it means I am a servant of Krishna. So see this, there's the realization of the absolute. The absolute truth is realized in three phases: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. This is the three features of understanding the absolute, right? That's where you see Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But then there's the other Brahman realization. I am spirit, aham brahmasmi.
Yes.
You understand the distinction there? One is there's three phases of realization, the absolute. That's from the perspective of the absolute. And then there's the understanding that I am spirit. That is called Brahman realization. Aham brahmasmi, I've understood that I'm spirit. That is from the perspective of ourself.
Okay, thank you. So this, sorry, is there echo? Aham brahmasmi. So when they are saying that, are they accepting that there is super soul also and I'm just a soul, or are they saying they are?
Okay, let me clarify this. So when one comes to understand aham brahmasmi, okay, I am spirit, right? Then the next question is, what is the nature of that spirit, right? So some people conclude, right, the absolute first feature is Brahman. So I am part of that Brahman, I am God also, right? Then one person understands, I am Brahman, I'm spirit. What is the nature of spirit? He will see the super soul, right? And when you see the super soul, Prabhupada explains two things can happen. He realizes, I am the servant of the super soul, or he can think that I am also the super soul, then he also becomes a Brahmavadi or Mayavadi. But someone will understand, I am Brahman, I am spirit. What is the nature of the spirit? The nature of the spirit is I am servant of Bhagavan. Okay, then he becomes servant of Bhagavan. So there's two perspectives here. The perspective of the three features of the absolute and the understanding of I am spirit, what is the nature of that spirit. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. So I would just like to briefly understand you. What you are saying is that there are two aspects. So first, two understanding. First understanding is the perspective of Brahman as one of the features of Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan, that understanding.
One of the features of the absolute, yes.
Yes, one of the features of the absolute, yes. And the second one you are saying is that that person of Brahman realization can also think that I am spirit. And
no,
he can.
Brahman realization means coming to the point of understanding I'm spirit. So suppose I'm Vrindavan Chandra, right? I am very much in the bodily concept of life. And although I'm trying to exist in the material world, I have some realization I am not this body, but still I've not come to the stage of Brahman realization because often I act as if I am the body, right?
Yeah.
But there will come a time where I actually practically understand, this is called Vigyan. I am not the body. Prabhupada gives the analogy of the coconut. You know, the coconut and the the pulp of the coconut. There'll come a point when the white part breaks away from the shell. And when you roll the coconut, you can hear it. That stage where the soul breaks away from the point of him thinking that he's the body, that is what is called Brahman realization. I am spirit. I'm spirit. And when he understands that I'm spirit, what is the nature of the spirit? Where does spirit come from? What is the spirit meant to be doing? And then we go on to understanding the three features of the absolute truth. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, very clear. Very clear, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. But then there is also Mayavadis who are saying that I am spirit and I am also a super soul. That is wrong, right? That is Aham Brahmasmi. I am God. That is wrong.
So they think, okay, I am spirit now. What is the nature of the spirit? The Mayavadi says, I am God. I am Brahmasi means I am God. God is spirit, I am spirit. So we are both supreme. That's their faulty conclusion. They understand that God is Brahman, supreme Brahman, but they conclude, right, if I become part of that supreme Brahman, then I'm God again. Now I'm a small spirit, and I merge into the big spirit, I am God again. That's what they think. And then the Paramatma realization, he sees the Paramatma, and then he thinks, okay, I am servant of the Paramatma, then it leads him to bhakti. But if he thinks I am that Paramatma, then he doesn't go to bhakti.
Yes.
It falls down.
So that understanding will not come at Bhava Bhakti then, because that person is completely delusioned, right, Prabhuji? When he says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am God.
No, he's not come anywhere near Bhava Bhakti. Therefore, this verse that I read to you, Patanti Adaha, it says so clearly that because they have not tasted the lotus feet of Krishna, because they can never come to, they'll never come to Bhava Bhakti. They will fall down, Patanti Adaha.
Got it.
You know, the first two categories, they will fall down. That's why this verse, Rupa Goswami is quoting 10-32. They will fall down because they've not got the taste for the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Today something has unlocked in my mind that I had some blockage there, but understood about the Brahman properly today. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Any other questions or comments? I know we're going a bit slow here, but it's nice to discuss this. All right, we are beyond time. I will stop here. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. If no one has got any other comments or reflections, any reflections or comments? Or shall close the class now? Thank you very much. Shila Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakta ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sorry,
Thank
next week we
you.
won't have Nectar of Devotion. We will be having Malini Nitai Mataji, who's going to address us. All right.
Wow.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
We have a good fortune next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.